Can I now request the Director General, Securities Exchange Commission, Sri Lanka, to give his views on what is happening in Sri Lanka in this space?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ghosh, Mr. Garg, and distinguished invitees. In the interest of time, in fact, I really don't have a presentation, but I really would like to take the audience through what in Sri Lanka we are doing about investor education, because that's a very important aspect of, I will be mainly speaking in terms of the capital market perspective, which is the area that that we have as SEC, which is under our purview. So before I get to the Sri Lankan perspective, governments around the world and the regulators are recognizing the benefits of individuals and national economies of having a financially literate population that has access to appropriate financial products with relevant consumer protection in place. So without an understanding of basic financial concepts, individuals are not well equipped to make decisions related to financial management. Individuals who are financially literate have the ability to make informed financial choices regarding savings, investment, borrowing, and more. In fact, when I was just there are so many definitions about what financial literacy is, and I particularly found the definition by Hinson and Messi in 2012 very, for one simple reason. What it says is a combination of financial literacy is a combination of awareness, knowledge, skill, attitude, and behavior necessary to make sound financial decisions and ultimately achieve individual financial well-being. In fact, the critical word, in my opinion, I like in that definition is what it ends with, financial well-being. I think that is what we need to promote amongst our investors. It's not about making too much money, but to be able to save for a rainy day where you would be able to live a comfortable retirement. So I think that's a key word in us trying to promote financial literacy and promoting for people to be able to make financial choices to have a secure future. So in general, financial literacy around the world is rather low, and it is estimated that only 33% of the adult population in the world are financially literate. So, I mean, that works out to roughly about 3.5 billion people, most of them in developed economies, not being financially literate. And I think Sandeep also mentioned the OECD has done a lot of work in this space, and also they've, even formulating and developing questionnaires to judge what the situation in the country could be expensive. I think in that context, the OECD has come up with certain standardized questionnaires which a lot of countries have already used. And finally, the outcome is that financial literacy plays a part in financial inclusion. So if you really look at, and also a lot of you all would know in 2014, I think Standard & Poor's had conducted a survey on financial literacy, which is a relatively basic concept. And according to that, Sri Lanka has been ranked at 35% compared to its South Asian peers. I think India is ranked around 24%. Now this in a Sri Lankan context is not surprising, because our print literacy rate is 93% plus. But also what it points out too is that having a print literacy rate of 93%, the gap is about 58%, which is quite large, so which indicates that there is a lot of potential for financial literacy to improve in our country. And I would like to, at this point, analyze some of the current realities in Sri Lanka in terms of some of the components of financial literacy, in terms of financial knowledge, financial behavior and attitudes. Now, Sri Lanka is a relatively small economy, and of course, we are currently, the banking sector dominates the fundraising and investment activity. So, as a result, all the banks have their branches spread around the country, and the capital market participants are only restricted to the urban areas. So, what this has done is, the banks are able to mobilize savings deposits at a very relatively low interest rate, whereas if you really factor in inflation, they don't have the knowledge to understand that in the long term, they are in fact not making any money, but in fact it results in negative returns. So this is as a result of a lot of the people not being able to make judgments in terms of their investments because there's a heavy reliance on what the bank manager advises them to do. So I think, and also in the long term, what we as the regulator is trying to promote is that the capital market is the best option to enhance one's returns in the long term. And the figures also justify that, but then for us to be able to communicate this to the market is the biggest challenge. And also, as I was very thankful and impressed by what Sandeep had to say. I think going forward, technology would play a huge role in promoting the causes of what we want to do in terms of enabling a better society, and in this case, to have a much more literate financial community. And the other thing is, a lot of people tend to get deceived by high interest rates. I mean, we've had occasions where, I think the basic, we need to educate people that, when there is a treasury rate, let's say, for example, if the treasury rate is 10%, they need to be able to know how someone is going to offer them 20%. So, I mean, we've had issues in the past where a lot of people have lost money. So, the risk diversification is also a key thing which people are currently not aware of. And even in the capital market, as the regulator, what we are trying to do is to encourage the small, unsophisticated investor to initially access the capital market via the mutual funds, the unit trust. But that again, although no matter what programs we have in place, we still see individuals trying to access the market with relatively small amounts of money and not really achieving some of their financial objectives. And also in terms of, so as I said, going back to the earlier example of banks mobilizing savings, all they have to do is run a full-page ad in the national newspaper saying that you bring in money and that you have the opportunity to win a Mercedes-Benz or something, and the next day they will mobilize a lot of money. But what it really does is, when the treasury bond rates are at 10-11%, they don't have to do anything else because the savings deposits fund their bond portfolios. So, I mean, these are current realities that we are faced with in this country. So, that is in terms of financial knowledge. But the other point where I think in Sri Lanka we would differ in terms of what Sandeep presented earlier, in terms of the behavior and attitude. I think in terms of behavior, yes, a lot of people would settle their bills on time, but in terms of attitude, a lot of people are driven to borrow to consume. a lot of goods in Sri Lanka. And in fact, that's at a national level also, we are an import-driven economy, and a lot of it, a significant part of it, is for consumer goods. So I mean, if some of you all come to Sri Lanka, or some of you all who would have already been there, I mean, our people, rather than postponing their decisions, they would want to own something today which they might really not be able to earn for it. So as a result, there's a huge growth in the credit and also credit cards in Sri Lanka. So in terms of the attitudes, people, although they might want to save for the future, the majority of them are driven by consuming, spending on very expensive consumer goods. So the other difference again, which I would like to point out vis-a-vis India, is that we have a relatively aging population. So there is a demand for pension schemes, insurance, and even the life insurance penetration in Sri Lanka is about 2%. So again, there are a lot of opportunity, but still we still haven't been able to educate the population about the significance and the importance of financial planning. And so, before I actually get to some of the programs that we are doing, it is very important that financial education needs to be visibly distinguished from commercial advice. So that is where the regulators and other agencies have a greater role in promoting financial literacy in terms of educating the public. So, and when we are doing our programs, I think there has to be certain, at the minimum, certain things that we need to educate the people about. That there are certain products that do exist, because a lot of people, in fact, at the SEC some time ago, in order to promote mutual funds, we actually did a survey of a sample size of about 2,000 to 3,000 people. We commissioned a third party, and for them, they know that there is a bank deposit, but mainly some of the capital market related products, the fact that even they exist, some of them do not know. And these are not the unsophisticated investors. These are some of the people who are engaged in certain professions which you would expect them to know. And also, the purpose of each category needs to be explained to people in terms of whether it's to receive income, make payments for a future event, or protect savings from the impact of inflation, etc. And also, there has to be a very clear message as to which products are regulated, because I'm sure it happens even here. A lot of the intermediaries, when they are promoting their products, they would say either they are regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission or our central bank, because that carries a huge positive in the eyes of the investor to be able to invest with confidence. And also, they need to be educated in terms of where and how to access those relevant products. So, broadly that's what I said, but specifically in terms of investor education and awareness building, the SEC Sri Lanka has been playing a very active role in the last 10 years. We have a separate arm that deals with investor education and awareness building. And to give you a figure, annually we actually conduct about 50 seminars across the island at schools, and also we conduct about the same number of seminars with the undergraduate students. In fact, we also we have a close link with the universities. We also want to promote the capital market as a future employment option for undergraduates, because right now, as I said earlier, Sri Lanka is a country where there is over-reliance in the banking sector, and if you really compare the capital market size to GDP, it's about 25%. So that shows the potential there is for the capital market to grow. And as the SEC, we have come up with a strategy to, in the medium to long term, to place the capital market as the preferred choice for fundraising and investment in the for the long term fundraising. Because also on the demand side, there is a huge opportunity, because we have the government pension funds and the long-term pension funds, which traditionally Sri Lankans are very risk-averse, and a lot of these investments are invested in government securities. But then going forward to enhance long-term returns, obviously an exposure to the capital market is a very important aspect which we are trying to promote. And also we have as I said, we work very closely with the universities, and with all the local universities, annually we give a gold medal and a cash award from the SEC for the students, the first 3 students that had the highest ranking in the capital market stream. And also starting last year, we have set up capital market information centers, where we have funded and gone and set up computers and the kiosk at local universities in order to promote and encourage research. So ideally, any capital market related research papers would be available in those centers, where it will be facilitated by the SEC. So these are in order to really encourage research in the areas of the capital market. And in the last 5 years, we've continuously had 5 18-week programs on the capital market on national TV, which we have found to be very important. And the last one was in relation to promoting investment. And also we tracked, after the programs, how many new CDS registrations have taken place, and the figure has been very, very encouraging. So also we, on average, publish about 200 articles in all 3 languages. As you know, you probably know, we have the English newspapers and Sinhala and Tamil newspapers. So in all 3 languages, on a continuous basis, we publish about 200 articles annually. And that is in terms of the investors. And also in 2008, we started a different division for our education and awareness building, and all the intermediaries where the SEC gives a license, whether it's the stockbrokers, the unit trust managers, they have to we have a qualification framework for all the intermediaries that engage in the capital market, and it was just revised recently through some donor agency funding. The whole idea is we want to make all the intermediaries and the people who give advice also to be accountable for the role they play. So in this area, we are, given the stage of our capital market, we believe that investor education and awareness is very critical, and it has to be ongoing. And as a result of the work we do, some of you might know, ISCO has a separate committee on retail investor education, and we are a member in that committee. And going forward, also with NISM and the work they do, because we are just 2.5 hours away from India, so we would like to explore how this the work that NISM does also, where we can work together and see in the interest of pursuing a common objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vajira. So that was a brief presentation on on what is happening in the space of financial inclusion and literacy in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. As mentioned by both of them, we plan to work together in this space and try to find out what all we can collaborate and help each other with. At this juncture, let me felicitate both the speakers from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and request you all that after this we'll immediately do a group photograph outside this auditorium, then break for tea, and the post-tea session will happen back at the A block classroom where we met at pre-dinner session yesterday. Thank you once again, and let's do the group photograph and have a fast tea break. And then when you are in the A block at the tea break place, there is a kiosk there. Please see what is happening in the kiosk, and if Mr. Kamlesh can help, he will also possibly show you the mapping of what is the state of financial literacy and inclusion in the country. Please come.
I think everything will try.